All right. Gentlemen, good afternoon, and it is my pleasure to have this opportunity to interview both of you distinguished alumni. This is a part of living history, so I'm really, really excited about this. How about favorite teachers, favorite staff persons, favorite administrators? I mean, you can't have a favorite administrator.
Oh, yeah. I remember the the German teacher, but I can't remember his name.
Yeah, had glasses.
Yeah, but he was one of my favorite teachers because not only did he help me to begin to understand how to learn German, which I don't speak or understand anymore, but he was also a mentor in a sense, in helping me to get a better picture of everything that was going on around me and helping me to focus a little bit on what my future should be. So I remember that as a very positive experience. My biology teacher, Salazi,
Yes.
and there was, and Colonel, he wasn't a teacher, he was an administrator, really. Colonel, we mentioned his name walking over here.
Carty.
Colonel
C-O-T-T-E-E.
Yeah, he was a person, a very distinguished gentleman, that also helped to give young men direction. And so I felt that he was a supporter that helped quite a bit in my tenure here. Those are people that come to mind right offhand.
Keith?
Yeah, I'm glad that Charles mentioned the German teacher. I also took German, and I remember this person, and when we revised this, I think we have to add his name. The way he spoke German was very grammatical, and I also remember he took the class to his home. In that setting, we would, be learning German. I don't know if that happened with you, Charles, but I think a couple times during the year, we went to his house, just kind of, I guess, to get away from the classroom. So that's one person I remember. The person I remember, though, was the head of the chemistry lab, was Dr. Erb. Dr. Erb, I think, taught chemistry in such a way that it was almost a pleasure to be in his class, along with the other people that taught chemistry. And Dr. Erb also had a 51 Studebaker. And that Studebaker just stands out in my mind. I think it was one of the classical American cars. And every once in a while, he'd ask me to move it from here to here, since I was a laboratory assistant. And I would certainly drive a little ways more than he wanted me to. And one of the things I remember, he was going into Philadelphia, and he was going to take the train, and he wanted me to, drive and then drive the car back, because he was going to take the train and get off back in Chester. So I certainly did. But I really enjoyed going around Philadelphia sightseeing in his car. But Dr. Erb stood out, and also Dr. Sterlazzi. Dr. Sterlazzi, teaching biology, he was a PhD, and he was a clinician. And I recall he was very exact in the laboratory procedures that was done at that time. And back then, I think Charles remembers, everything was hands-on. Chemistry was hands-on, biology was hands-on, and you actually did things, put it under the microscope or put it in the test tubes and see results. Whereas today, a lot of this stuff is computerized and theory. But back then it was very practical. Another teacher that I remember was a Mr. Rolfson, R-O-L-F-S-O-N. He taught history. And the way that he taught history was not the conventional way. He brought out certain things about European history that and American history that kind of woke you up. And I remember him because I think he started to open my eyes about, in fact, about segregation. He would have some classes about what took place with the founding fathers and where we are today. And that was, I thought, as I get further away from the 50s, I remember this person. The other person was a lady that taught the history of the Bible. And she would always leave the classroom whenever we had an exam, and her favorite saying was, "Well, I don't mind if you cheat." It was just something that I remember. She was a good teacher.
That was Professor Logan.
Logan, that's correct. I'm trying to remember her first name, but
Eleanor.
Eleanor Logan. I think she was a thorough, enjoyable teacher. You learned a lot. And also counseling. Dr. Mall was the counselor, and I felt that Dr. Mall would always give you insight on what you wanted to do and why you wanted to do it. Among the military also had some good instructors. The instructors, were very practical and straightforward, but at the same time, there were some that would just delight you in terms of the way that they would make their presentation. Jim, the head of athletics at that time was also the football coach, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I think a building is named after him, the athletic building. And the way that we went about intramural sports, I think was a very important part of our lives, in that we had a chance to play a lot of different sports, just to enjoy it, not to be competitive. The library, I recall the library was one of the places that always open on weekends. The people in there would always assist you. And I felt, and the library that I remembered the most was the Brooklyn Library, and I could almost compare that to the Brooklyn Library as I remembered. Obviously, it's not a correct comparison, but it was a very good library. The chemistry lab, which was right next to Old Main, at that time, I felt was suitable for for the classroom, for the laboratory exercises. It was really limited to about 10 to 15 people. The same thing with the biology building, which was across the street from Old Main in a very small building. And I think the classes were limited to about 5 to 7 people. The classes that I remember having the most people were the military science classes, and also the history classes, and the general liberal art courses. Courses that I felt, in my own career that really helped me was physical chemistry, also physics, and math. I'm trying to recall the physics teacher. He was good. In fact, I think physics was also taught in the biology building, if I remember. But the instructors were all open, and I can't recall one that wasn't. And that's something that, as I going on to graduate school and comparing it, there were two different lives all together.
Now, it is needless to say, there was a small handful of African American cadets. Did you feel that there was any special bonding with the African American employees here on campus? Did any of them seem to take you under the wing, look out for you? Charles?
As I remember it, I think that they were very supportive of us and friendly. In that sense, I think they took us under their wings, but no special favors. It just made us feel at home.
How about you, Keith? How'd you see that?
Yeah, I remember And I'll mention some names. Dickie Hinkson. Dickie was like a groundskeeper, and he was always very open and friendly. In fact, he lived over here on East 17th Street. And his brother, James Hinkson, I recall, was blind, but they opened up their house to Charles and myself, on the weekends if we wanted to go over there. So Dickie stands out in my mind because I did during a couple summers work with him, and very courteous, very open, very generous. Also remember John the cook. John was, I guess today we'd call him a chef, but John was a guy that was very serious, but he would always, in his own way, like, hey, you're going back to your room, here's a piece of pie. John was a very generous guy, and unfortunately I don't remember his last name, but he was the head cook for the Slater system here at PMC, and he actually cooked the meals from scratch, 3 meals a day, if I remember.
Now, Charles, how about your campus-related jobs? Did you have any here on campus?
I think during the summer I did some construction for just a couple of weeks before I went away. And that was my only job experience here. Other than that, I did some other extracurricular things, but didn't work.
Anything outstanding that happened to you during any of these jobs on campus?
Well, because that was mainly the only job experience here, because I usually worked off campus someplace in another town during the summers, I don't have anything that was really outstanding that occurred here to report.
How about you, Keith? Anything happened while you were working here?
No, in terms of any particular incident, working in the library, you had to learn the Dewey system. I remember that because I hated it. Working in the chemistry lab and, the work that had to be done there. Working as a waiter, I felt probably was one of the best jobs I ever had because of all the various fringe benefits associated with it. And the other day I was checking my Social Security history, and when I went back, it takes me back to Brooklyn when I worked for the Brooklyn Eagle as a newsboy, a carrier, I should say, and also PMC. There are 4 years there where all the work that I did went into Social Security, and it's something to look at. At my age, to think it started back from there. I can't think of any particular. Oh, the thing I remember, I guess the most was Rose. Rose was I guess you would have to say like the maintenance manager, and she'd be in the basement of Old Main, and she would assign jobs. She was like in a rocking chair, and I think Rose probably was here at PMC going on into the 70s still, from what I gathered. But she was a Rose McLaughlin, I think her name was, and she had her own office. Our office, I think, was like her bedroom. And she'd be assigning various jobs to everyone. And one of the jobs that she'd assign me was always the cleaning in the Old Main. And there were other people that did cleaning. The students did mostly like dusting. And I remember she assigned me to Clarence Mall's office. And I think Clarence Mall was either dean of students. I don't think he'd become president yet. But I remember dusting his office and taking a seat in his chair and falling asleep. And I remember he woke me up, and I remember that. But It was an incident that just stands out in my mind. I think he was smiling more than anything else.